Sometimes we spend hours balancing each percussive element, and for some reason, it's just not quite working. A lot of the time, it might actually be because we're overcomplicating the process. So I'm going to save you hours of time and show you how to glue your drums together in 2 swift moves. It's important to note that before you start processing your drum bus, you probably want to pay attention to the individual elements a little bit. Not too much, don't overcomplicate it, but especially in the production process, sound selection is really important. After that, balancing, a little bit of mixing, and maybe some effects will help. And then once you feel that you've got to that place, these are the techniques that you're going to want to apply to get that glue. Let's take a quick listen to the track that we're going to be using today, which is the Navon remix of Avalon by Like Mike Ginchi and Alessio Labate. Now on this clap here, I have a short reverb. What I want to start by doing with this reverb is making sure that it's actually part of the drum bus. So you'll see that I routed the output of the reverb to go to the drum bus here. And that's so I can actually process everything together. It's going to make sense a little bit later on in this tutorial. Altogether, the drums sound like this. The problems that we sometimes face when using samples from 2 different sample packs is they don't necessarily have that glue. Now, I do actually think that the sound design is particularly good and well matched between these 2 loops. However, we could always make it a little bit better. One of my favorite ways of doing this is by using tape saturation. Now, the drums have been leveled in a way that they're both peaking at roughly the same level. Now, why is this important? Because I'm going to be using this tape plugin as a compressor and as a saturator at the same time. Now, to get the effect that I want, not only do the drums need to be leveled correctly, otherwise whatever's higher in metered volume is going to trigger the saturation more, and maybe that's the effect you want, but that's not what I want right now. I'm going to increase the input until I start to get some of that feeling, and then I can increase for more saturation and more of that smoothing of transients, or I can pull back. Let's pull the output down first, because otherwise this is going to get very loud. And let's increase this until we start to hear that tonal change. The other thing that I like about the Oxide by UAD is that the saturation adds some high frequencies and adds some harmonics that sort of fill out the mid and high mids in this very pleasant and musical sounding way. Now, if you don't like that, you can change the IPS to 7.5, which gives it a darker tone. Music producers, do you hate Dropbox? Well, Boombox is a new alternative built for musicians by musicians. Obviously, we offer the ability to store, organize, and share your files on an enterprise-grade encrypted network. But we also built features like timestamp text and voice notes. Better playback quality than any of the DSPs. Stunning artist-branded shares, dedicated inboxes for receiving files, curated playlist creation, and access to a global network of talented musicians. Maybe it's time to check out Boombox.io, the new industry standard. Next, I'm going to set up a bus. I'm going to open the very famous Valhalla Vintage Verb, which a lot of us know and love. And there's one particular setting on here, which I think is actually the best setting on Valhalla Vintage Verb. And if you go into ambiances, you'll find drum air. You want to make sure that the mix is at 100% because we have set this up as a send, so we don't want any dry signal coming through here. We just want the affected signal. And then we're going to increase the send to taste. Now, what I love about this preset is that it's a very, very short reverb, and short reverbs don't take up a lot of space, but they add this stereo width, a little bit of sustain, and by putting the same reverb on both these sounds, the clap and the loop, it gives us the impression that they're both recorded in the same space, just like an actual drum kit would be recorded in one studio room, and that's why all those drum sounds that come from that drum kit glue together in a very natural and organic way. Let's listen to that in context. Another thing to note, if you remember from before, is that reverb on the clap is also going to the drum bus, which means that it's also feeding into this reverb send. So there's a reverb going into a reverb, and that's something that I like to do to get a more cohesive sound, even with the reverbs and not just with the dry signals. Here it is, with and without that processing. If you like tips like this and want to get better at production, mixing, and mastering, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel, and head over to boombox.io where you can sign up for free today. It's been a pleasure as always, and I'll see you very soon. Peace!